welcome to the third and final review of the evening, Age of Wonders 3. Now, you might be saying to yourself, this is a bit of an odd title for us to be reviewing. Not so much in subject matter, but the fact that this is a game from 2014. This game, if you didn't know previously, was available for free, about a week, 2 weeks ago?
Something like that.
Point of order is, it was available for free for a measure of time. In the past, we have reviewed games that have done this, especially when there's a gap to be filled. And, if you've listened to our other reviews this week, these were pretty small and simple games, all things considered. And Age of Wonders 3 serves as a very nice contrast in all the ways. Because Age of Wonders 3 is a 4X strategy game.
I didn't have enough time this week to even, think about really getting into this, so...
Yeah. It's like, 4X strategy games are among the most time-intensive of genres out there. It's no coincidence that there's a play-by-mail feature in this game. I'm not even joking, but...
believe it.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a 4X strategy game is, that means explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Probably the closest contemporary to this particular 4X is Civilization. And Civilization is kind of the big brand name in terms of 4X.
I always mentally thought of them as non-brand name Civilization simulators, because that's usually kind of what you're doing. You have an entire country or whatever that you gotta get running.
I can certainly see that, but Age of Wonders is no slouch in the 4X arena. Certainly one of the bigger names. The reason why this game was free is because it was really, it was used as a promotional tool for the upcoming Age of Wonders Planetfall, which is releasing not next week, but I think the week after. It's releasing August 8th or 9th. And though it's a bit weird because Age of Wonders Planetfall is going in a very different direction. To use an analogy, Planetfall is to the main series what Alpha Centauri was to the Civilization games. That is to say, the Planetfall is going into a sci-fi direction. And indeed, this is another thing that differentiates Age of Wonders from Civilization and a lot of strategy games, for that matter, because instead of going for real world, either ancient or modern, medieval, whatever time period you want to pick, this is straight up fantasy. This is a high fantasy 4X game. You are playing as fictional nations, fictional races. It's all existing in the world of high fantasy.
No need to worry about nuclear Gandhi here.
No, nothing like that. Or if it, and as far as fantasy goes, it's pretty standard. You've got elves, dwarves, orcs, goblins, humans.
How many of those are playable?
There are 6 races at the outset. That is because this game has also received expansion packs over the years, and that added 2 or 3. Here we go. The 6 main playable races are humans, high elves, dwarves, orcs, goblins, and draconians. You got to admit, okay, draconians. That's kind of the you don't see that fantasy race represented too much here.
Unless you're a big fan of Dragonlance.
Right. that being said, it's not really bearing any resemblance to Dragonlance Draconians.
Right.
Because, well, that's kind of beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. Like, point of order is, you started out with 6 races. The expansion packs added, I want to say, up to 3, because there have been a couple of expansion packs, but we'll get into those later. Also, another thing that differentiates Age of Wonders from similar games is this actually has a campaign setting.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, well, once again, like Civilization or, a 4X strategy game we reviewed earlier in the year, Enemy at the Gates, where there's an overall goal, but it's not nearly as focused as what we got here in Age of Wonders 3.
A lot of them either just semi-randomly seed the world with civilizations or something, and then your goal is to either go to space first or kill everybody else.
Something like that. So, some uber goal. Mm-hmm. Here, there's an actual storyline. It's actually much more akin to an RTS campaign than a 4X, because I've seen this kind of campaign in a lot of real-time strategy, where it's Command and Conquer, Warcraft, Starcraft, it is.
Craft.
The point is, if you played a real-time strategy game, you'll recognize this kind of campaign. Specifically, earlier RTSs from the 90s, because it's a 2-sided campaign, as opposed to having 3 factions, or more than 3 factions. It details the war between the Elven Court and the Commonwealth Empire.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I don't know how much of this story is playing off of previous Age of Wonders titles, because, as the number denotes, this is the 3rd in... Actually, this is the 4th in the series. Because there's a Age of Wonders game called Shadow Magic, which might have been a standalone expansion. Not exactly sure what the deal is there, but yeah, even though it's called Age of Wonders 3, it's the 4th in the series.
Age of Wonders
and this
2
is the first
Gaiden or something.
Yeah, it's and this is actually the first Age of Wonders game I've personally played. I have all the Age of Wonders games that have been released so far. It's just, these being 4X games, I usually don't get a lot of time to play them. Indeed, where I am in terms of getting through the content of this game, I've only done about 4 campaigns in the story mode. That is because after you get past the tutorial campaigns, it starts, even though it's got a more focused goal, it operates like a 4X strategy game. And that takes a long fucking time.
Indeed.
I spent, it's I think I spent about 3 hours clearing out one of these. Straight through. And that's the nature of 4X strategy games.
So is it just you versus all of the other things in different campaigns in turn?
Yes, but no. It's more, it is the Elven Court versus the Commonwealth Empire, but it is you and your allies versus the enemy and their allies.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And mind you, you can play both sides of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, and keep in mind, this is just the main story campaign. This is, once again, getting into the DLC campaigns and such. And that's just campaigns. This isn't getting into, it's got the normal 4X mode. Call it civilization mode, if you will. It's also got multiplayer, as you would expect. Like I said, it's got play by mail. It's got an editor. You're not going to be starved for content if you play this game.
Mm-hmm.
That also another thing that has been added to this game is hero units. Once again, this is kind of another RTS styling that has been added to a 4X game. And what hero units are, like in terms of the campaign, they're your leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've also got a role-playing dynamic going on. Your hero units will level up in various ways. Not just like hit points, defense, but resistances. It's not general points. It's very specific things, like poison resistance or a specific magic spell, and so on and so forth. And the way the system works is the more points you put in, the more points you need. Like, so level 1 costs 1 point, 2 points, and so on and so forth.
You know, to discourage people making one unit with level 20 with 20 points and instead, like, spreading it around and having, like,
right,
5 units at level 3 or 4.
And you'll get about 5 to 10 points per level. Mm-hmm. And also, hero units bring in unique magic effects and such to the battlefield.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is worth noting that in addition to a strategy mode, this game has a tactical campaign where the individual, maybe not so much the individual units will engage each other. I will be honest, outside of having to do it in the tutorial campaigns, I never bothered with this shit. It's not something that's unique to Age of Wonders either. I think Civilization has it. It's one of those things that is nice on paper, but when just the strategy mode itself is such a time sink, and this mode is a further time sink, you will be hitting auto battle very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to try your hand at the actual tactics, and I never bothered. Believe me, it's like after a while you're gonna just do this in the interests of time.
Yeah.
Because I remember doing that, and everyone doing that in like Civilization. So the point is, like, if you want to engage on a micro battle system, you can do that. I don't know. I just went, gather up my overwhelming forces and roll the dice, so to speak. Worked out pretty well most of the time. Gotta be honest. But yeah, it's like, the tactical combat was easily the weakest part of the game for me.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's something that can be literally avoided. Let me see. As you'd expect from a 4X strategy game, there's a ton of systems to keep in mind. I'm like, if you want to, and mind you, I think it depends on where you're playing. Like, if you're playing this in more classical strategy mode, you're probably going to be focused on playing this more like a classic 4X. If you're playing the campaign, you're going to do some of the upgrading, some of the building up of cities, that kind of thing. But it being the campaign setting, and a lot of the time the campaign goals are to wipe the other factions out, you're going to be gearing up for war.
Yep.
Indeed, that's what happened. That's what happened to me. Like, eventually, like I'd have a few cities that were just turning out troops, turn after turn after turn. Probably overkill. But once again, these fucking campaigns, they will last you hours.
Yes.
And it's also you not only need to expand, but you need to protect your cities, because quirk of this game is if you don't have units protecting your city and a enemy unit gets to that city or outpost or fortress or watchtower, whatever it is, if it's unoccupied, they'll automatically take it over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's something that made me reset things in the early stages. Not so much in the later stages. And there's also an alignment system. Granted, I'm not exactly sure how much that plays in like the campaign, but alignment plays into the diplomacy system. Yeah, this game has a diplomacy system as well. Some of these systems don't play well with the campaign setting.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like, this is definitely stuff that was definitely more for you're playing it in Civ mode, where diplomacy actually matters. Getting allies actually matters more.
Uh-huh.
Because the storyline dictates, for example, like in the third campaign, I've got to get to this particular mountain, which is on the other side of the map. Also, one of the other mission statements of that campaign is I've got to wipe out all of the opposition in the area. So while I'm starting out neutral against the local inhabitants, the Goblin Orc Alliance, I'm eventually going to have to go to war with them because the plot said so.
Yeah.
I feel like part of the fun of this would be being able to choose what you do.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you do not. Like I said, this is the campaign mode, not this, not the regular mode, not the strategy mode.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like,
still, even if it's campaign mode and it was like choose one side to team up with or something.
Once again, the sides that you team up with are kind of pre-designated based on the needs of the story.
Yep.
Right.
And yeah, that is at odds with some of the systems they got there. So, even if I want to become allies with the goblins, for example, it's like that's the thing that's going to take too much work versus just stomping the shit out of them.
Uh-huh.
And mind you, that was a campaign scenario or campaign segment that gave you that choice. The next one didn't even give you the choice. You start out at war with the human factions. Your goal there was to recruit all the goblin factions, and that's where you take on a quest and they become your allies or your vassals or whatever. Anyway, getting back to the alignment system, that does play into things like capturing a town. When you conquer an enemy city, you have a lot of choices. You can plunder it, you can raze it to the ground, you can, no joke, ethnically cleanse the place.
Yep.
What that means is you can, it's like if you've got a draconian army, a draconian nation, and you take over, say, a goblin city, you can set that city to be all draconians. You're gonna slaughter the shit out of your population, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the option I always chose, which was the vassal, or which was the absorption. That takes about 4 or 5 turns to fully complete, but um, it's the one that will give you the greatest reward
Yeah.
because it's like plundering. You can also raise to the ground a city. That's kind of in the interest of quickness.
Yeah.
It's like if you want some quick cash, you plunder the place. If you want to make sure the enemy doesn't get those facilities, you raise it to the ground. If you want to use that territory for your own ends, because more cities, bigger cities, adds money and mana to your empire.
Yep.
And indeed, those are the two major resources of the game. Money is going to be the one you're going to be watching more than the mana.
Mm-hmm.
At least if you choose to forgo the tactical mode. Like there are 2 levels of spells. There's the tactical spells. There's the hero spells and all that. There's spells that work on the battlefield, and then there's the strategy or grand spells that affect the particular city or what they call regions, because the way cities work in this game is straight out of Civilization. If you've ever played a Civilization game, you've seen how a domain works here.
Mm-hmm.
Just to say, the game is hex based, and a city is based off of a hex, and the amount of hexagonal occupation is that domain of a city, and the bigger that domain, the bigger the city, and the domains can even bleed into each other. And once again, that plays into your resource gathering, especially since there are resource modifiers on the map, like gold mines, mana spouts, farmland, that kind of thing. And indeed, a lot of the grand level spells play into that. It's like you can do things like bless your land, have speed up growth, do various things to your enemies, provided you can see them, because this game does engage in a fog of war mode.
Mm-hmm.
And the spells I often used were the summon animal spells. Not just for unit selection, but a lot of the animals do make for good scouts.
Yep.
As I said, I could probably talk, just on and on and on and on and on about all of the various systems and aspects and interplay. Another thing, going back to the hero units, they have individual classes.
Yeah.
You got rogue. Trying to remember all of them. You got the theocrat. You got the sorcerer, archdruid, dreadnought, and warlord. And also worth noting, it's not just the 2 big factions on any given map. There are also independents, both in terms of cities and units. We would call these barbarians in Civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Here they have a more appropriate name.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's just a lot going here, as you would expect from a 4X strategy game. Another thing that you might be noticing is the production values. They are quite high. In fact, they are among the highest I've seen for a 4X game.
Yeah, definitely.
That is that does tie into the history of the development of Age of Wonders, as this game did it's one of the mid-range titles. Also worth noting, this was not a crowd-funded title. All it was all independent financing, including some unfortunate investors. But it is worth noting that Age of Wonders 3 here marked the series into true 3D. It's not just full 3D models, but
that long?
Well, the previous games were isometric sprite-based affairs. That being the old games came out in the range of 1999 to 2002, which is you were either still sprite-based at that time, or you were entering early 3D. And a lot of strategy games from around this time, they were still sprite-based. Even going to the years of 2001 and 2 and all that.
Mm-hmm.
No. Let's see. Like I said, there's just so much to cover that we couldn't, we just can't cover it all. The music was okay, but definitely very background.
Yeah, I don't even remember it.
Yeah. Well, it's that's kind of the purpose here, because keep in mind, it kind of has to be that way, because this is a game that, if you're using the audio, if you're not somebody who turns off the audio and puts on a podcast, which I could definitely see with a game like this, because once again, the expectation here is you are going to be spending hours on this game in a single sit.
You're gonna be invested.
This isn't. It's so the soundtrack kind of has to be mellow and flowing into the background, because you're going to be listening to it for a good long while.
Yeah.
I'd say the only exception is the opening track, which is a lot heavier than what's actually contained in the maps. But that's because you're not listening to it nearly as much. Let's see. Suppose in terms of how the gameplay goes, once again, if you've played a 4X game, you generally know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
It's I will give it credit for bringing some unique flourishes to the table. But it's not something that's veering too much out of the mold, especially if you're going to forego battles. And in that sense, if you like strategy games, this is definitely something you've probably already invested in, if not, years ago, than with the free weekend deal, or the I'm not sure if it was a weekend or a full week, but anyway, I suppose we should now detail the expansions. There were 2 of them, at least 2 major ones.
A deluxe thing and then 2 expansions.
Yeah. The expansions were the Golden Realms, which adds the Halflings playable race.
You might have heard of them. They're short.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, Halflings is the non-trademark name for hobbits.
Yeah.
Right. Although the idea space for them has also drifted a little bit from classic Tolkien hobbits. They're usually a little bit more, a little bit less homey, I should say.
Once again, that's what we call legally distinct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Halflings are the centerpiece here, but not the only thing. This also brings a new mode called Seals of Power, um, which is a new victory condition where players must seize and defend a number of independently guarded seals randomly placed across each map.
Sounds more fun than just kill everything.
Possibly. Didn't explore this mode. And, for the record, I do have the complete edition. Eternal Lords. That is the second expansion, and I'm presuming that's the final one since this came out in 2015, and that was 4 years ago, and they got a whole new game coming in. Mm-hmm. But this one added 2 playable races: the ice dwellers called Frostlings, and the bipedal felines called the Tigrants.
Which at least aren't in everything ever.
Yeah. This also gave a new class called the Necromancer.
Mm-hmm.
And that is another aspect of the Age of Wonders. There are things called dead cities, which have ghouls and all sorts of undead creatures in it, and they function kind of the opposite of cities. Like I said, there's a lot here. Let's see. This adds new powers, considerations for race relations, a new unifier victory type. You must construct unity beacons to win. A new Frostling campaign mode that uses the Necromancer class. Basically, these were both substantial expansion packs. And I suppose that gets to pricing. Now, this one's a bit hard to evaluate, not just because the game was free, but because the game has gone on sale. Honestly, I don't even think that grabbing the free version of Age of Wonders 3 was the best way of going about it. Because here's the thing: when Age of Wonders 3 went went free, that was just the base game.
Yeah.
Which admittedly is a fairly reasonable reason to make a game free, is here's a game for free, but look at all these pretty expansions you can still give us money for.
Right, that was kind of thing. Like, the expansion packs were on discount, but they still cost about, if I recall, like $20.
Mm-hmm.
Considering that the second expansion is $20 normally, that makes sense.
Yeah, but the Age of Wonder. All right, let's work our way through this. The Age of Wonders 3 basic pack will set you back normally $30. Age of Wonders Deluxe Edition will be $34.99. And the individual DLC packs, $6.99 for the Deluxe Edition DLC. The Golden Realms expansion clocks in at $11.99, and Eternal Lords expansion clocks in at $20, $19.99. The collection bundle will clock in at $62.06. And finally, there is the franchise bundle, which clocks in at $80.68. Now,
that includes 1 and 2.
That includes all.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, and whatever the other one is.
And the complete edition of Age of Wonders 3.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like all of the Age of Wonders will be yours if you buy the franchise pack. That does not include Planetfall. If you want Planetfall, that's something you have to get individually. Not surprising, since it hasn't been released yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as is this a good price? Yeah, under normal circumstances, these are all reasonable prices. It's just this game being from 2014, it has gone on sale, and that's my ultimate recommendation because these sale prices, um,
Sometimes when it goes on sale, it goes on sale pretty hard.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the base price was I think like $7.49 or whatever. Like you can get the complete collection for like $10.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I couldn't say when that kind of sale happens. You know, it's like Age of Wonders 3 could be going on that kind of sale when Planetfall happens.
That's a possibility.
You know, but I do have to factor in the fact that, you know, this game has been on deep discount before, and will probably do so again. You know, if we were talking about this game in 2015, I'd still say that the prices listed here are pretty good. In fact,
and I mean, buying it at full price you're not going to be like ripped off or anything. Just it's more you might be kicking yourself when a few weeks or months later you see it for like way less than you actually pay.
Yeah, if you like these kind of strategy games, that's the only reason you'd be buying at full price.
It's also like way less than a Civilization game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just looking at Civilization prices, they're on sale right now. Like Civilization 6 is clocking in at a sale price of $17.99. Probably about the cheapest that's been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, Age of Wonders price is comparable to Sid Meier's Civilization 5. You know, that's just probably the overall price because this game is about 4 or 5 years old. Let me see what the price is on for Planetfall. If it's got a price. But I'm like, you know, it's like overall Age of Wonders 3's price clocks in at where it should be. But yeah, like Age of Wonders Planetfall, regular price $50, deluxe edition $60, platinum edition $90. So, you know, that's where Age of Wonders lies in the 4X realm. It is it's about as triple A as strategy games get. Even though Triumph Studios isn't quite a triple A studio like the 2K owned Firaxis Games is. You know, although Triumph Studios is now owned by Paradox, so I suppose they have even more resources at their disposal. Anyway, overall point is Age of Wonders 3 is definitely worth the price.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, it's just given the age of the game, it's probably, you know, you probably be best to wait for another deep sale. Like if you're looking to buy at full price, probably go with Planetfall since it is the new game, and you know, I wouldn't expect Planetfall to go on sale for a long while. As a game itself, really excellent 4X strategy game. Honestly, I liked it better than the Civilization games. Civilization's just never been my jam. Mainly because I always felt it was a little too unfocused. You know. But yeah. I guess overall, like 9 out of 10. Or, you know, it's like very high accolades if you're willing to invest in it.
Yeah.
Don't think this game will be a candidate for Game of the Year this year because, once again, it is something from long ago.
Yeah.
It's unfair on that side, but you know what is here is very put together. Right. So, anything that we didn't cover?
Uh, as far as I can tell, I think we covered everything.
Any thoughts from you, Alex?
Alex?
I had my mic muted.
No.
I've always had a little bit of a hard time getting into games like this just because there's always a lot of systems going on, and sometimes I like focus on one and start enjoying that, and then oops, I have to do like the 3 other things that there are to do, and then I have a hard time shifting gears. But this one looks fun, and I'm probably a little bit more interested in this game because it's, you know, I mean, even if it's a fairly generic fantasy setting, just the idea of it being fantasy setting is a little bit more interesting to me than the Civilization games take place in a quote unquote realistic world, and I feel like the novelty or the cleverness. I mean, there's only so many laughs you can get out of like India building the Great Wall of China or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Personally, I like this game better than most of the strategy games I've played. Like the closest comparison I can make is probably Heroes of Magic and Might, because it had sort of that whole hero system and whatnot. But yeah, I think I like this much more, honestly, than most of the others I've played. And it's also fantasy.
Yeah, I can definitely understand the perspective. It's like I like to put more into this game because, like I said, I'm only like partway through the one side of one campaign. It's just.
Yeah, that's another thing. This is a game where you need to invest a lot of time into it to like get anything out of it. Really, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, now that this game is no longer a requirement for what we do here, I'm probably not going to put more, like, not until like we get to a break in the schedule or another light week that we had this week. Point is, the job here doesn't really engender lengthy play sessions.
Yeah.
That is to say, I have to move on to other games for the new week. So, I might never come back to this. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that disappoints me, but it is, when you're doing reviews week in, week out, that's kind of how it goes.
Yep.
Anyway, so that'll about do it for this installments of the Fragments Silicon reviews. The week ahead, let's see, no Euro show this week, so just the one interview, as we will be having on Wednesday, July 31st. Megan Summers of Screwtape Studios. They are a concern that hails from Australia. Brisbane, if I'm remembering correctly. We'll be talking about their action side-scrolling platformer called Damsel. This game saw release on the PC platform late last year. It is releasing on the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch like next week. Or no, I think this week, if I'm remembering correctly. No, here we go. It is August 7th.
So next week.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that. I'm not exactly... Hang on, let me see if this is... Yeah, it doesn't look like this game has been released on PlayStation, so... Yeah, there's a question right there.
Screwtape Studios, you said?
Yeah. Screwtape Studios. Anyway, so be sure to look for that on Wednesday.